If you ever wanted to strangle someone, but you thought about it, right? Let's go to Delish Deli. Actually, it looks a little busy here. Let's maybe go run an errand first. It's always a good problem when it's too busy to get a seat at the restaurant. If you go on my phone, then I don't need a battery and everything. So we just finished going to Macy's. It's a local camera place here. In the last couple of episodes, some of the sound was a little bit crazy, so I want to make sure it's easy for you guys to hear us talk okay. Fortunately, no success today, but we'll try back later. Sucks to be you. I think there's an Indian food place that I know over by JY. Let's head over there. Hello. I'll clap in a sec here, trying to think. So one of my favorite type of foods is Indian food. I've tried this place with online delivery during the pandemic when all restaurants were closed for dine-in delivery, but finally I get to check this place out in person. So excited to try the food here as well. So I'm sure you don't literally want to strangle somebody. Sometimes you probably feel that way. But I think that all of us go through times where we just don't understand other people, and it's really hard to put ourselves into their shoes because we don't want to. When I was in high school, the one class that I learned the most from wasn't math, it wasn't science, it wasn't English. It was kind of an elective class that I took because I heard they don't have any homework, called peer group counseling. It's a really different class. Basically, it was led by the high school English teacher who just went by the name Phyllis. I don't even know what her last name was. Every other teacher was Mr. or Mrs. so-and-so, but with her it was just Phyllis. And she was just a really amazing teacher. One of the few teachers in my whole life that I look back on, and I'm just so grateful that came into my life. So this class that I went to, so I didn't have to take homework, is the class that I learned the most from out of probably 12 years at school and college too, frankly. And this class called Peer Group Counseling was basically just set up. Students would come in and they would sit in this big circle and we would look at each other. And there's a few rules in this class, like whatever stayed in, whatever was said in the classroom had to stay in the classroom. People had to listen to others before they would speak. And people had to really show empathy is what it was. But it didn't start off that way. When the class started, I walked in there and like kind of a typical teenager, I looked around the room to see who was in class with me. And I saw an ex-girlfriend, I saw a couple of close friends, I saw some people that I didn't like at all. I didn't necessarily know them, but I knew that I didn't like them. In so much of life, but probably especially during school, I think our impressions of people are who they are from a distance. We don't really take the time to get to know people, especially I think when we're younger. So in this class, I had all of these impressions of people from the very beginning, some good, some bad, some indifferent. And as that class went on, it really started to change my perception of those in the class. The way the class was structured is that there would be a particular topic for the day, and Phyllis would raise the topic. It might be something about home life, it might be something about school, it might be about, I can't even remember to be honest now, but however the class would start off, the teacher would basically raise the topic, and then whoever wanted to speak could speak, whoever didn't want to speak didn't have to speak. And during that time, at first everybody started off very reserved and shy and not wanting to share. But as the weeks went on, as the months went on during the semester, everybody got to know each other more closely than, almost anyone that I got to know going through school. Hold on, food's arriving. Awesome, thank you, sir. Water? So what was I saying? During this class, people would share more and more what was really in their heart. And what I found is that some of the people that I disliked the most, or that just seemed angry or not nice people to be around, were the people that were often going through the most in their life. What they would go through when they saw a parent at home, or so many different personal situations going on in their life really impacted who they were on the inside and then who they were on the outside as a result. And for the first time in my life, what I really saw is that how people are on the outside is a really clear reflection of what's going on in their surrounding and what's going on in their heart and what's going on in their head. And it started to develop empathy in my life. I started to realize that when somebody acted a certain way around me on the outside, there was probably something deeper going on in the inside. And that class, the lessons that I learned, the relationships that I made there, have really stuck with me throughout life and served me well as I've moved to different countries and as I've had different types of personalities in my life. So I really want people to get a clearer understanding of what the Philippines is like. Probably my first thing I ever heard about with the Philippines, I had a friend when I was about 19 years old. Mike and his family was from the Philippines, and I used to go to their house, and I remember hearing about Imelda Marcos and her shoes. So it was probably the first thing that I heard about with the Philippines. And then after that, a few years later, I remember hearing about these huge garbage dumps where people lived, and just thinking that it was really sad that people had to live in that particular way there. But living here, I see that things are so much more diverse. Yes, there's people living here in places that are very poor and that are still developing, and there's other places that are here that are state-of-the-art skyscrapers and malls and buildings, and is equally impressive to anywhere that I've been in the world. And so I think this is something else with empathy. People can grab a picture of what it's like if just a very small part of a person or even a group of people, and it really misses who they are as a whole. So what's the difference between being here compared to, past impressions, never being in the Philippines before? The biggest difference is those are just hearsay. When you actually move to a place and get to know it up close and personal, when this becomes your home, when you're making friends and working with people and dealing with strangers and, just dealing with day-to-day life, it's a very different thing where you get to know people on a completely different level. But just because I'm here up close and personal, still doesn't mean that automatically I understand Philippine culture or what Filipinos think about different things. My first impressions when I was here is that people are the most kind, most respectful, most sweet people, anyone, anywhere that I've ever met. And I think for a lot of, expats or foreigners that come here, they say exactly the same thing. I've never met one person that's a foreigner that said anything different than what I just said. However, there's also things as a foreigner that are super challenging here and that drive me crazy, and I think those are the challenges. It's easy to be understanding or appreciate another culture or people with the things that you love about them and that you find endearing. But it's much harder for the things that, on first glance are so different and so confusing that they just don't make any sense, So what does that look like personally? On a practical level, it's for me going to make a withdrawal at the bank, and that doesn't take 5 minutes, that takes 45 minutes or an hour, and you're just sitting there wondering, what is everybody doing in this space where this could possibly take so long? Or it's buying a car, which I just did recently. Mostly in the US, that might be a 4-hour experience of, talking to an annoying salesperson and then doing some test drives and then going through the loan qualification process where everything happens, pretty automatic with them sending out loan applications to multiple possible banks. Whereas here, getting a car, that was a 6-week process, doing the same exact thing. And I never knew how impatient I was until I moved to the Philippines, because I never knew that some things that I took for granted, how quick they could be, could literally take so long. Other times it's work-related stuff where, we might be hiring for a particular position, and our, recruiter will interview 20 people. Maybe he'll find 10 of those are qualified, and then he'll set up interviews with them. Maybe only 5 people show up to those interviews, and I can't understand things like this here. Now, what's going on with all of that? How am I supposed to kind of perceive that as an outsider? What does empathy look like? Not just with the really sweet things where you're enjoying getting to know people and just seeing how, genuine and wonderful people are, but also when there's the things that, from my background and my, cultural experience in the US or Australia, when I lived there, we're just so different. Some of these questions I don't have answers to yet, but what I do know is that there is a reason that things like this are so common. Nice motorcycle in the background. Those type of things take a bit more work, and I think when it comes to empathy, it's really a form of caring for other people. It's saying that I'm going to put myself in your shoes, and even if you do some things that at the outset drive me a bit crazy, I'm going to care about you enough to try to understand why you do the things that you do. There's an old country song that has the lyrics that says, "God give me patience now." And that's what I feel like a bit here. Some of those things, especially patience, I want to learn a lot quicker. Thank you for watching another episode. If you haven't already subscribed, liked, and hit the bell button, you know what to do. Have a good day.